Prime Minister has said that those responsible for the violence of last night will feel the full force of the law after clashes between protesters and police erupted in Southport.
Far-right protesters pelted the police with glass bottles and bricks. They attacked a mosque following the horrific knife attack that had killed 3 children and left others injured. Of course, many police officers were injured last night to 39. One knocked unconscious, another broken nose and so on. Housing Minister Matthew Pennycook is with us this morning. Of course, you're on to talk about the house building revolution that I'm sure that Labour wants to talk about, but we obviously need your reaction to what you saw last night. This appears to have been organised. Merseyside Police have said it appears to have been the English Defence League. What's your message this morning to the people of Southport?
Well, I think it's completely unacceptable that you've had to put up with what we've seen overnight. It's absolutely appalling. The community is reeling from the horrific incident that took place 2 days ago. From what I can see, people are coming together to try and support each other, to try and care for the families of those who were killed, and to have their space intruded upon, the space they need to process that trauma, to grieve by this public disorder and violence, I think is completely unacceptable. And it's unacceptable too that the local police officers, who need to be focusing on the criminal investigation that has to happen at pace, have been caught up in the disorder and 22 of them injured. And the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary are absolutely right to make clear that those responsible, many of whom appear to be not from the town or even from Merseyside itself, feel the full force of the law.
Thank you. Let's move on to the economy and housing. We had the statement from the Chancellor on Monday saying that the fiscal situation is worse. The Telegraph reports today Reeves admits she will have to raise taxes in the autumn budget, which rather jars with what you all said during the general election campaign. The key, apparently, to avoiding big tax rises is growth in the economy, and the big policy is building more homes. Are you, on the basis of your plans, going to increase house building this year?
We want to absolutely turn around the situation we've inherited, Ed, which is house building supply now estimated to be under 200,000 a year, affordable housing supply incredibly constrained. We very deliberately set a target of 1.5 million homes over the 5-year Parliament, not an annual figure, because we knew we were going to inherit a particularly bad situation in terms of future supply. It's worse than we thought in terms of the downturn. We're in a real trough we've got to pick ourselves up out of, but we want to turn things around very quickly. That's why we've established a Housing Accelerator Task Force to look at all those consented sites across the country where there's a particular constraint that central government might be able to help unblock. That's why we've taken the first steps yesterday to fix the planning system, overhauling the National Planning Policy Framework. And today we are launching a new expert independent New Towns Task Force chaired by Sir Michael Lyons, with Dame Kate Barker as his deputy, to identify appropriate locations across England for large-scale new communities, 10,000 homes or more in size. Okay. So it's part of a comprehensive plan, but we've absolutely got to pull things out of the trough in year one. OK, so given the urgency, is that New Towns Task Force to build more homes, is that going to report in September or October? We've asked it to report within a year, but we've made very clear to Sir Mike...
A year?
Within a year.
I thought it was urgent.
But we've made very clear to Sir Michael that if there are...
Are you actually saying a year, a year from now?
Up to a year, but we've made very clear to Sir Michael that if the task force can identify appropriate locations quicker than that, we will get moving on them immediately. What we want to see is shovels in the ground.
Why are they taking a year?
Because they are doing, in a sense, Ed, a high-level spatial strategy for England.
14 years to get ready. I mean, surely you need to go a bit quicker than that.
I haven't had 14 years to get ready on this front. I've had 3 in opposition
for 14 years, twiddling your thumbs as a party, ready for this moment. You come in, you say you want new towns, and we're not going to have a report for a year?
No, we want to give the expert task force the time to report back. It's an incredibly tasking mission we've given them to identify a range of large-scale potential new communities across England, urban extensions, urban regeneration projects, and your classic standalone greenbelt new towns, if you like. Okay. We've given them up to a year. We want them to report earlier on a number of sites, and we will get moving on them before that time.
Can I ask you about the Sunday Mirror? Sunday Mirror, Labour will start building, council house revolution, pledge to kickstart construction. Is there any new money been announced so far for new council housing, or is this just an aspiration?
No, we made a series of announcements alongside the changes to the National Planning Policy Framework yesterday to inject some confidence into the affordable housing sector, to stabilise supply.
Council housing. The headline is Council House Revolution. Council house means public money. Is there any new public money?
So I'll give you one example. We allocated £450 of local authority housing fund money yesterday that will enable councils to acquire and take on properties that will help them get people in temporary accommodation out of that expensive temporary accommodation into that type of housing. So there was a series of announcements yesterday. That was one of them that did allocate new funding, already committed funding in that case to local authorities. But it was one of a number of measures alongside pre-spending review, where we hope to be able to say more in terms of what we will do to boost affordable and social housing.
One more question for me. I saw in Inside Housing from May 2021 that in your constituency you were writing to Greenwich Council opposing a 1,500 home development. You said that it would harm the character and the appearance of the East Greenwich conservation area. So you were objecting to a planning application for new housing. I mean, you're the housing minister, but are you a builder or are you a blocker?
I certainly want to see more building happening both in my constituency and across the country. And in the 9 years I've been an MP, Ed, we've had tens of thousands of planning consents agreed. We've had many thousands of homes being built in my constituency.
Why are you objecting to 1,500 new homes in your constituency?
I'll tell you why if you give me the chance to do so. I objected to that particular planning application because it was not in line with the local plan. It was not in line with the site allocation. It was a speculative development application. In the 3 years since they've had consent, not a single home has been built. It is the type of development we want to see less of. We want to see more plan-led development that is shaped by local communities. But the conversation has to be whether we build these homes, how we build these homes, not whether we do so. I want to see on that particular site at least 1,500 homes come forward, but I think we could do better than the application that was put in.
So you would do good blocking, not bad blocking?
No, well, there is bad development and there's good development. We're certainly not saying that local communities can't have a view where they feel bad development is coming forward, but you've got to have an answer on the other side, which I did in that case, about what good development looks like and how you get the homes coming forward.
Part of your policy, I understand, is that any new development has to have or should have 40% of what's termed affordable housing. Is it should or must?
So it's must unless you can prove with sufficient evidence that you cannot deliver that on that site. And these rules will apply both to the land we want to release.
Why would you give that flexibility? Sorry, why would you give that flexibility to private developers when actually what this country does need, and it's repeated time and time again, is more social housing? And just to be clear, the definition of affordable housing, as I understand it, is that it costs you 80% of the market value. Social housing is a lot more actually affordable, which is 50% of market value. So you're saying 40% has to be affordable, but maybe not even that. I mean, how is that actually a council house revolution? It really isn't, is it, in practice?
It is in practice, and some of the changes we made yesterday were to put more of a priority on genuinely affordable social rented homes. You're absolutely right. We need far more numbers of those coming forward. Let me tell you why I think in some cases you might want a bit of wiggle room, if you like, on that 40% target. If a developer comes forward in a particular part of the country and says there's a grey belt site in the green belt we think should be released as part of a local plan, we can only deliver 38% affordable housing on it. We want that housing to come forward rather than stall and nothing to be built. There has to be a bit of wiggle room in the system, but our golden rules on grey belt release and our new Towns Code will be very clear about what we're targeting in terms of affordable housing, the infrastructure, amenities and services that need to come up front alongside that.
And that's all well and good. But the problem is, as we read, that taxes may well be going up anyway. So what becomes affordable changes for people all the time. So 80% of market value is actually unaffordable to many, many full-time working families. Do you not need to redefine that? And actually, affordable is not affordable anymore. So when you're saying we want affordable housing, what you're saying is, actually, I'm sorry, most of you won't be able to afford this either.
No, I think the point you're making is completely valid. The previous Conservative government introduced what was known as an affordable rent tenure of up to 80% market rent. We need to look at those tenures going forward in terms of future government investment in affordable housing. But we've been very clear that there will be some, if you like, non-social affordable housing that will come through. But we want to see far more priority and focus on bringing forward genuinely affordable social rented homes, because you are absolutely right. For a cohort of people at the bottom of the housing market that is all they can afford, and we are all picking up the tab through an increased housing benefit bill, still rising, by not putting those people in genuinely affordable social rented homes. So the clear focus of the planning reforms yesterday, and there'll be more to come, is on, yes, increasing the number of affordable, but a particular focus on genuinely affordable social rented homes.
Right. Well, OK, there we must leave it.
We must.
Thank you, Housing Minister Matthew Pennycook.
And we'll find out whether he's a builder or a blocker in the coming months, won't we?
Yeah, after the war, Harold Macmillan, who was Housing Minister, had a scoreboard on the wall. Every time a social housing was built, it went up. I mean, it was that big a deal. I mean, you know, it needs to be that central, doesn't it?
There'll have to be public investment in social housing if that's going to happen.
Yeah, there will.